Good morning, Baltimore. It is Monday, March 30th, and welcome into the latest episode of the Early Birds podcast. I'm your host, Matt Weyrich, alongside Ravens reporter Sam Cohn. And Sam, it has been a crazy week with opening day. You even came out to the ballpark, which is always a treat. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I was going to say, it's been a few episodes since we've gotten a chance to do this together, so it's nice to be back in the studio and be back here with you. And
first time with the chairs.
Yeah, it's great. And two, last week was actually like one of the craziest stretches of a couple days of my life. On Tuesday, I stood in a TSA line for 4 hours.
Oh, no.
On Wednesday, I drove to New York at 6 o'clock in the morning in a cargo van to help my girlfriend move to Baltimore, and was back at like 10 o'clock at night. Spent the whole day moving. Thursday was opening day and spent all day working. And I've been moving throughout the weekend the last couple days. So I'm happy to be sitting here and taking a deep breath and hang out with you and doing this.
Well, let this be your zen. Let your chance to decompress from everything that has happened and maybe turn the page a little bit as we finally move forward from opening weekend in which the Orioles took 2 of 3 from the Minnesota Twins. We're going to talk some Ravens, actually. This is still a Ravens podcast.
Yes.
We'll get into their new motto and a few news and notes here as the offseason continues for the Ravens.
As Zen podcasters, that's just what we do.
That's what we do. I mean, what else would you want to relax to than discussions of Zay Flowers' contract situation?
We should overlay smooth jazz under our voices while we talk. People can go to the spa and put cucumbers on their eyes and listen to the Early Birds podcast.
You know, I think we might need to start putting headphones in and pumping some of our own music to calm us down a little bit when we get a bit excited here. But yeah, it was a crazy week for no one more crazier perhaps than Shane Baz, who, as you all know, a couple of days ago inked a 5-year, $68 million extension that tacked on 2 free agent years to stick around in Baltimore. A huge deal, obviously, for this pitching staff, which is really hopeful that Shane Baz is going to be a frontline starter for them for years to come. And he just made his Orioles debut as we record. I literally raced right over here after the game to do this episode. 5 1/3 innings, 7 hits, gave up 4 runs, all came in 1 inning, but settled in kind of from there. Overall, I thought it was a solid debut outing, first of the year. It looked like he was on a bit of a pitch count there. They pulled him relatively early into his pitch count, but overall, the stuff looked good. The fastball command was kind of a little bit shaky, and that's something that I think is one of the last things to come for a pitcher earlier in the year. We're seeing it with Kyle Bradish as well. So no cause for concern there. I think there's still a lot to be excited about with Baz. But Sam, when you look at this team and you see Samuel Basallo and Shane Baz getting locked up, are you just more encouraged overall about kind of the direction and what ownership is doing now to lock up players long term?
Yeah, we talked about on a few episodes ago that if they're going to extend someone, who's it going to be? We played our new game, trying to figure out where we kind of felt about each of these guys. I don't think either of us, was Shane Baz even on our list?
I don't think we even put him on the list, which he's a new guy. He signed this extension before throwing a single pitch in Orioles uniform, so we were looking at more of the guys who have been around a while.
Yeah, I think it says a lot about where this organization is, and I think it says a lot about wanting stability in their rotation for a guy like this. But I want to start just by asking you, I mean, when Shane Baz gets to Baltimore this offseason, I think a lot of the reaction was it just kind of felt underwhelming. Okay, they got a guy who 2 years ago had good numbers. Last year, with the caveat of him pitching in a temporary ballpark for the Rays that inflated his ERA. I think it was just overall a little bit underwhelming reaction to bring in a guy like this because there was so much excitement for the Orioles to get a front-end starter to make a big splash, a la what they did with Pete Alonso, but do it for the pitching staff too. And as you said, they extend him before he throws his first pitch. What does that say to you about what they already know, their confidence in him? Because I think it says a lot about the organization in terms of they want to, again, bring some stability and they have a lot of trust in him. But to do it before he pitches a game, what was your reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly it is a bet on him. I mean, at the end of the day, the average annual value of this deal is relatively low, so I don't think it's something that's going to necessarily hamstring the Orioles moving forward. They will be paying north of $20 million the last 2 years of this deal, so it's kind of backloaded as well. Gives them that financial flexibility in the short term if they were to go out this offseason and sign an ace to one of those high AAV, low short-term deals. Certainly there would be the room for that, especially with Chris Bassett and Zach Eflin coming off the books, and Trevor Rogers for that matter, all coming off the books this offseason. So, no, I think it's a bet on his upside. Shane Baz, Mike Elias was already familiar with him from his days with the Houston Astros. Baz is a Houston native and was a top prospect in the draft when Elias was a scouting director for the Astros, and they certainly looked at him in that first round, didn't end up going to him, went to the Pirates, got traded, and now was traded again to Baltimore. But he, looked like he was meeting his potential in the minor leagues, rocketed through the minor league system, but injuries derailed his early career, had to have Tommy John. But, last year being able to show that, he was a year removed from the injury and be able to put up a big workload meant that the Orioles could rely on him for a substantial innings count this year, which is obviously huge coming off of the year that they had for the rotation. And, the numbers weren't great, a 4.87 ERA, I believe it was for Tampa, but the ballpark he was pitching in certainly was not doing him any favors. His home road splits indicated that. And more than that, this Orioles pitching staff, Drew French, pitching coach, and Ryan Klemick and some of the video guys, they have a track record of taking some players, tinkering with them, and getting the best results from them. And that's, with a guy of Baz's potential, I would argue that they haven't actually had a pitcher with that much pedigree coming in that they've been able to work with and turn into something greater. So the potential for Shane Baz is legitimately just as good as Trevor Rogers and Chris Bassett and Kyle Bradish in front of him. So
yeah, have to imagine this is what they would have liked to do with Grayson Rodriguez.
Sure,
this is the path they saw for a homegrown guy.
And I think we saw the flashes from Grayson. It really just came down to health, and when you miss, this was all about 2026 was getting Baz. I mean, they essentially swapped the two. It was two separate deals, but when you kind of throw them together, especially now because Baz was supposed to hit free agency before Grayson, now they're signed for the same amount of time.
Yeah.
So you can really line up the two of them now to compare them over the next 5 years of what the Orioles could have had in Rodriguez and what they could have had in Baz, or what they have in Baz. And, Rodriguez, he's already on the IL with dead arm to start the year. How many innings you really could rely on him for 2026, which is such a crucial year for the Orioles. They have to compete now. I think it made all the sense in the world to make the moves that they did, bring in Taylor Ward, to bolster their outfield, but also ship a couple of prospects out and get a guy that you truly believe in Baz.
Yeah, and just the last point about the Grayson thing, I didn't really know a lot about this, but someone smart told me the other day that him and that Baz and Grayson have very similar journeys, and they're both from Houston, right?
They're both Texas guys, yeah.
So they're both Texas guys, and they have sort of came up in a similar way, and you can kind of compare them. So it's just interesting to see that maybe that was something they wanted to do with Grayson, and then now they're doing it with Baz. Mike Elias, you mentioned having that relationship with going back with Baz a ways. I think you said before he scouted him when he was a high schooler because when Elias with the Astros, Baz at a high school, 30 miles north. And Elias said the other day, I know what a strong worker and strong character he has, and that certainly is something that you want if you're entering into a longer relationship. It seemed as much as they had all this confidence in him as a pitcher and his baseball ability, it was really backed by just what they know about his character and his work ethic. Yeah,
no, certainly there's some history there, and I think it says a lot that this came together after the Orioles pitching coaches had a chance to work with him in spring. They got their close-up look at him in spring training, saw what kind of feedback he took and the kind of worker he is, and then this deal comes together. I think that says a lot about that they really do believe in him. And I do want to touch on the press conference you mentioned. Mike Elias talked. David Rubenstein was there as well as many of Baz's teammates, almost half the clubhouse.
Whole team pulled up.
I mean, seriously, they were filled up the whole room, which was pretty funny to have David Rubenstein answering questions about more extensions with Gunnar Henderson and all of these other guys, Trevor Rogers, in the room. You know, so
the Orioles, I think it was the Orioles, posted a video like panning through the room, and you can see them all in the back, like just like goofy, kind of posted up. I think Kobe Mayo was sitting in his seat, kind of like all like they're like squished together. Yep. It's funny. It's cool to see them all come out and support him like that.
I remember at the Basayo press conference, Adley Rushman was like squeezed up with us in the media row.
Yes, that's right.
But I thought it sent a strong signal that a lot of those guys were there, especially most of them not even having known Baz for very long. But also David Rubenstein, with all of them in attendance, says the Orioles are open for business in signing further extensions.
Good one-liners.
He does.
He knows how to make a headline.
He was feeling goofy. He also kept talking about how they were undefeated because they had won their first game and they go out and lost the next game. Right. So
that's his fault.
Multiple people in the clubhouse accused David Rubenstein of jinxing them.
That's funny.
Which baseball players are notoriously superstitious. Yes. So not maybe the crowd to drop that in, but I mean he's saying all the right things in terms of being open to doing this. I think that the Baz deal is such a great team-friendly contract that it doesn't preclude them from making any further moves down the line, whether that's for Trevor Rogers or maybe Zach Eflin in free agency or someone else. Tarek Skubal is going to be a free agent this offseason. Imagine if the Orioles actually shelled out and got a player like that.
Not even going to entertain it.
No.
I might butcher this. Was it Gunnar Henderson who said after they extended Baz, if the Orioles want to come talk to me, like I'm happy to talk, but that hasn't happened yet and that's not a priority right now. If you're someone, and obviously the price is way higher for someone like Gunnar, but if you're someone like Gunnar, even if you're someone like Trevor Rogers, and you see the kinds of extensions, not the fact that they're extending players, but the kinds of extensions the Orioles are interested in making so far, are you either a little ticked off or are you sort of reading the tea leaves like, I see what they're looking to do when they say they're going to spend money? Yes, David Rubenstein says they're open for business. But what does open for business mean when it's a guy who...
$500 million.
A guy...
Legitimately.
A guy who comes in, has not pitched a game yet, and you are saying we felt like we got him at a low price and we feel like he can get better. Mm-hmm. They said the same thing about Samuel Basayo. Are you, again, reading the tea leaves or feeling like that's... If you're Gunnar Henderson or maybe, again, Trevor Rogers, like, I don't belong in that category of guys they're trying or willing to extend as of right now?
Yeah, I think that these contracts, I think they send a good signal to the clubhouse that there's investment. We've seen investment on other things, clubhouse amenities, the spring training facility, all that kind of stuff.
Opening day, that ballpark looks fantastic.
Yeah, the ballpark upgrades. I mean, this ownership group has been busy. I mean, they also solved the Masson situation, which had been hanging over the organization's head for a long time. So I think they've checked off a lot of boxes that David Rubenstein had when he came in. Obviously, signing Gunnar Henderson is like the dream come true scenario for the Orioles. And for Gunnar to look at these contracts, I mean, they're both they're called extensions because they do technically extend the years that these players are going to be in Baltimore. But, Basayo's was 8 years, $67 million. They only added 2 years of team control with that contract. Shane Baz's was 5 years, $67 million. They only added 2 years of team control. So most of the money that we're talking about in these deals is buying out their arbitration years and giving them cost certainty, which is the entire motivation for these guys to sign these contracts in the first place. Is saying like, I would be in arbitration and that would depend on how I do. Now I know exactly how much I'm going to make.
Gives them a little security for sure.
They'll get a signing bonus right up front too, which especially for a guy like Samuel Basayo who hasn't made a whole lot in his career. I believe Shane Baz had a nice signing bonus in the draft, so he's at least gotten his million whatever already. But for a guy like Gunnar Henderson to look at that, it's kind of apples to oranges. I feel like he knows that. What the kind of money
it's a different ballpark.
He's going to have. And also, look, you don't employ Scott Boras as an agent unless, you're looking for a paycheck. Like, that's what it comes down to. A lot of people say, like, the agent works for the player, yada, yada. There's a reason he hired Scott Boras. So, he wants the best representation and obviously is going to command a lot of money if he hits the free agent market. So, I do really think that if the Orioles want to get a deal like this done, that contract's got to start with a 5, maybe a 6, maybe even a 7, which is pretty insane to think about.
Bring it back to Baz. He pitched on Sunday. That first inning goes 3 up, 3 down. And I'm in the press box, I imagine most of the time, and probably every fan of Camden Yards is like watching him so closely because it's going to be under a spotlight the first time someone plays right after they sign an extension or have news like this. First inning, 3 up, 3 down. You're like, all right, this, you know,
here we go.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Welcome to Shane Baz era. Second inning gives up 4 runs. What are you thinking after 2, and then what are you thinking after they pull him?
Yeah, I mean, they actually got some guys up and moving around in the bullpen in the second inning, so I thought that we might not be seeing Shane Baz for very long if he had continued to unravel there. And, you know, Twins jumped on him a little bit. I think you got to give that lineup credit. They had a good game plan against him, thought they executed that well. You know, got some traffic on the base pass and were able to get a couple of big hits in the bottom of their order. So, you know, it wasn't like they were crushing the ball. They just were kind of racking up hits.
And at the end of the day, one outing isn't going to define, obviously. But it is just funny to see how quickly something like that happened, because I think you're expecting, like, oh, the Orioles extended a guy. We haven't seen him pitch yet. He's going to do what Trevor Rogers has done.
Honestly, more than anything, I was just encouraged by the fact that he didn't have any walks. And for a guy whose command was kind of failing him early, to be able to have enough to keep it in the strike zone. You know, if you're going to fail, at least fail in the zone. I can respect that.
And that's what Drew French saw in spring training, and that's why they felt the confidence to extend him.
Yes, definitely go and check out our colleague, Jacob Calvin-Meyer's feature on Baz that went out on Sunday morning with some old Western references, please.
May I? So I was reading Jacob's story earlier today, preparing for the pod, and Drew French, during spring training, compared Shane Baz to Wyatt Earp from the movie Tombstone, which is a classic 1993 Western. And it's hilarious. I haven't seen the movie. You said you haven't seen it either.
Nope.
I don't know if you polled 10 people. If you walked outside and asked 10 people if they'd seen that movie, I don't know if any of them would have. But it looks fantastic. I'm like so intrigued now. Wyatt Earp is a real person who was alive in the late 1800s. And just look up his picture. I think Jacob tweeted it too.
He did.
Basically, Drew French said he's a lot like Wyatt Earp in terms of his demeanor and his intensity, and also the fact that Shane Baz showed up to his extension press conference in snakeskin boots. Jacob does a great job explaining this in the story, so again, I do encourage you to read it. But the one thing that I did want to bring up with you, and I mentioned this before we started, is that Shane Baz is not the only Major League Baseball player in the history of Major League Baseball to get a nickname, or to be, I should say be compared to, because it's not really a nickname, but to be compared to a character, a real-life Western character, but more specifically from this movie. The other was Roy Halladay, who was nicknamed Doc Halladay from Blue Jays announcer Tom Cheek, and it was a reference to the gunslinger Doc Halladay. Doc Halladay also in this movie. And I didn't know, I was watching the trailer, and the trailer had mentioned Doc Halladay, and I was like, I wonder if that's where Roy Halladay's nickname came from, because I didn't know that either, and sure enough it does. So, not drawing comparisons, just if you're going to be in the same sentence as another Major League Baseball pitcher, that's not a bad one to be in the same conversation.
No, Hall of Famer in every sense of the word, and I respect. I mean, he's a Texas guy, and he kind of carries himself that way. You know, him and Colton Cowser actually played in Little League ball together, travel ball, that kind of thing, against each other. Parents knew each other, grew up pretty close. So there's a good Texas contingent in that Orioles clubhouse. You know, people like to joke that they have a type in the draft, and certainly I think Shane Baz, more ways than one, has checked a lot of boxes for him.
Yeah, and again, just to go back to the real point, is that they saw in him, Drew French, and you were down in spring training, I think you could speak to this better than I can, but they really did see in him, the way he carried himself. They saw in him what gave them the confidence to extend him, which is the way he pitched, the way he was around the clubhouse. And we've spent so much time talking about the way Pete Alonso was in the clubhouse, the way Albie was in the clubhouse, the way Chris Bassett was in the clubhouse. What's Shane Baz like when you kind of see him come through? I don't know if you have a real sense of that.
I mean, honestly, kind of quiet, but he's cracking jokes. You know, he plays a lot of video games, and he's gotten in some of the groups with some of the guys. I heard them talking about their Discord channel today, so I know that a few of them have a Discord channel that they hop into and, you know, play Fortnite, that kind of thing.
Classic.
So, man, I gotta say, like, I love video games. Like, Fortnite, we're still playing Fortnite in 2026.
You will not. I'm not really a big video game. You will not catch me in a Discord channel playing anything.
I'm in Discord. I pop in with some.
Really?
Yeah, I've got a few games. I like to play like random indie games that kind of pop up. We'll download it. It's like a $10 game, and it's like a collaborative 4-player game. And my buddies and I will jump in and play that for 2 weeks and then never play it again. Like that's kind of our style.
As you
Fortnite,
recently,
I played Fortnite in college, like when it first came out. But man, I feel like the only people playing Fortnite these days are like 15-year-olds. But that's just me.
I would agree. But, I mean, athletes love to play video games.
It's true. And, I mean, I think Corbin Carroll streams on Fortnite and Blake Snell on there maybe. So, I mean, it's definitely a trend among Major League Baseball players.
Yeah. I don't know if it takes their mind off it. There's a lot of studies done that. I mean, there's a lot of athletes that play chess. A lot of studies done about how helpful that can be.
Some Orioles players, too. Jeremiah Jackson's pretty good at chess.
Is he?
I was watching him play in the clubhouse the other day.
Cheeto Beawuzi, I was trying to remember who the player was. Cheeto Beawuzi is like one of the best chess players in the NFL. They did some tournament like a couple years ago and he won. And he talked a lot about how helpful it is for him in the game. So things like chess. I don't know how much Fortnite's going to help you play baseball, but
I get the decompression aspect of it.
You got to build fast.
Yes.
That doesn't feel like a fastball coming at you, but I don't know.
I can't build anymore. The game got too fast for me. People got too good at building, and that made Fortnite a little bit out of my depth.
If Shane Baz lives up to the extension, make a Shane Baz Orioles Fortnite skin for him.
It's about time they get some baseball players.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Isn't Shohei in the game?
I think actually that's recent. Yeah, I think they did add him recently. But this is not a...
We have literally
We are so off the rails right now.
Yeah, we also don't know any
We don't
know a lot about Fortnite. So.
We have no idea. So you all should look that up and tell us. But
so the other thing, Matt, I want to ask you, just to kind of wrap up here with Orioles, we are 3 games into the season. They win their first series. What do you feel like you've learned about this team that you didn't super know? Aside from Shane Baz, what do you feel like you've learned about this team over 3 days?
Yeah, I mean, offense took a little bit of time to get going. First 2 games were pretty rough. 5 hits or fewer in each of the first 2 games, 16 strikeouts in that second game, which was 1 short of their season high last year, which oddly enough was 17 strikeouts against the very same Twins. So Twins seem to have their number in that regard. But then the offense broke out in that 3rd game, orchestrated a comeback after falling down early from Baz's rough second inning. So, some good clutch hits. Pete Alonso collects his first RBI for the go-ahead hit. Tyler O'Neill had a great game. 3-run homer, but also making a great play to catch Byron Buxton, rounding second base for too far over, pick him off kind of from there. So what I learned really is that it's game 3 of a 162-game season. It's a bit of a cop-out answer, but these guys are still kind of getting in the groove of things. You can tell that. You can see that with the starting pitchers and the pitch counts that they have them on. You can see it in how Craig Abernathy is managing, in testing out some guys in different situations, whether that be pinch hitters, which we saw a interesting sequence of pitch hitting in that game on Saturday, and then Sunday in his management of the bullpen to use Tyler Wells in a setup role, but have Yunier Cano come in to clean things up after Wells put a few runners on and allowed a run to score. So I think we're starting to see a little bit of what Craig Abernathy is thinking from the manager's seat, which has been interesting to see. His lineups as well. Having Colton Cowser go to the bench in the finale and having Dylan Beavers in center field. First time Beavers has ever played a game at center field at the major league level. He immediately lost the ball in the sun.
Great.
And that resulted in a double. So a learning curve there for him, which, you never want to fault a guy for losing the ball in the sun. That happens, but it's definitely an ugly play because the guy's kind of cowering out in the outfield. So we're still feeling out this team a little bit, but they come out of the first series against a team in the Twins that doesn't have very high expectations, and they get a series win. It's exactly what you'd expect them to do. So now they're on to the Rangers and potentially Jacob deGrom, who might be starting one of these games here in Baltimore over the next few days.
Yeah, I was going to say, to your point, I think seeing the progression of Craig Abernathy as the manager, how he handles things, and then how he handles adversity, how he's not every decision he makes is going to be perfect. He's going to get things wrong. 1, how he responds to it, and 2, how he adjusts will be fun to follow. You mentioned it's game 3 of 162, so you can't. I'm sure to some level he's kind of testing things out and still trying things, knowing that there's a long season. They want to figure things out sooner rather than later. But to see how he maneuvers that from the manager's seat will be fun to watch. And I want to plug opening day video we worked on
that you absolutely crushed.
Thank you so much. On Thursday. So we had an excellent team. You, Jacob, Josh, Taylor, Michael, damn,
Surya.
Yeah, damn. We were. I
We
mean,
had
we were
another photographer.
We were kind of squad deep.
We were
on
rolling
opening
deep.
day.
Yeah.
So I was also there to do. One of our editors had this idea to do a sights and sounds of opening day, and I was tasked with handling that project and spent all day just kind of going around Camden Yards trying to capture what it feels like to be there on opening day, because I think there is so much like that. That's why days like that are why we get romantic about baseball. It's so fun to just see the energy there. When a team is good, bad, or indifferent, there are times in the middle of the season where there really is such a lull. But the excitement on opening day and the energy for renewed hope. And I was actually talking to Jacob about this a little bit during the game, that like people always say that baseball is such a metaphor for life, and this idea of, you know, you don't get many second chances in life, but opening day always feels like it's a clean slate. You have another try. They're going to have this shot of redemption. I just spent as much of the day trying to capture that as I could, of just the energy and the life and the excitement and the hope. And my favorite part of the video is this older gentleman who I was interviewing with Michael Howes, one of our other reporters, and he was like, "I just remember, the boys are back like the song says." And I was like, dude, that was poetic. The way, like, just like a funny, like, kind of nothing line, but the way he said it as if he said the most prophetic thing was just my favorite. So,
Oh yeah, no, I love it.
Yes, go check that out on YouTube. It was a lot of fun to put together and try to capture as much of that as I could.
Absolutely, and you did a great job capturing the sights and sounds of just stepping into that atmosphere again. It was just definitely the pomp and circumstance of opening day is always something, but just to be out on the grass again and talking to guys on the field, watching batting practice, I had to stop for a moment in the middle of everything and just kind of sit down, touch the grass a little bit, and be like, man, we're back.
It's exciting.
You got to. In this industry, you have long days a lot, working weird hours and things like that, but you got to stop and smell the roses every now and then.
And that was a beautiful opening day.
Yeah, what the heck was that? We got 85-degree opening day, and then next game it's 45. It was the 10th coldest game in Camden Yards history on Saturday.
Yeah,
we're tied for that.
A lot of people were saying that was the nicest weather for an opening day that they could remember, and then a day later, the 10th coldest game in Orioles history is funny.
It was crazy.
I'm not going to say classic Baltimore or Maryland weather, because I think you can make that line about literally half the country. So I don't like when people say it. Like, oh, that's just the weather here. It's like, that's.
I grew up in Virginia. We said the same thing.
New England is exactly the same.
Right.
Like, it's anyway.
Just with maybe a colder flare a little bit up there.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and switch over to Ravens in just a sec. And we're back celebrating a birthday of the Baltimore Ravens. The 31st birthday of the franchise was on Sunday, and we saw what looks to be the start of a new marketing push that is rivaling the Orioles' Fly Different slogan.
Yeah. The Ravens put out a video on Sunday. There was a 30-second clips of throughout the years, as the Ravens like to do, showing some of their hard hitters and best players and great moments, et cetera, et cetera. But more than anything, I think it really digs in on this idea that we've had conversations about, which is that they are fully stepping into what is a new era of Ravens football and ready to, I don't want to say leave anything behind, because they're not really leaving anything behind, but they're comfortable entering a new era. And it's a very similar conversation to what the Orioles were having just a couple years ago with when David Rubenstein buys the team. They're willing to spend more money. They have this young core that's coming up, and things start to change. So much of the conversation we had when Jesse Minter was hired is, how much is he going to separate himself from the 18-year John Harbaugh tenure and be ready to step into this new space? And by all accounts, he has said that that is what he intends to do. And now he's getting the team behind it. And not to say that there was ever really a doubt that that was going to happen. It's just interesting to see them start to use the verbiage of what that's going to look like. So the caption for the video was, after the first 30 years of Ravens football, it's time for the next flight. What do you think of that line? The next flight. How do you feel?
I think I like the next flight better than Fly Different, which is technically incorrect.
Grammatically incorrect.
Yeah. But I can understand wanting to show that you're turning the page a little bit, that things are going to be different this time. The Orioles are trying to do the same thing right now. These two organizations are kind of in very similar situations where they're technically in the height of their competitive windows, but also making substantial leadership changes. So how do you kind of walk that line? And both seem to be taking similar paths to trying to walk that.
Yeah, it's funny. The video starts with Jonathan Ogden, who was the first homegrown Ravens Hall of Famer, and it ends with Trey Hendrickson at his press conference. Obviously, some Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Nate Wiggins, Kyle Hamilton mixed in there, but
no Max Crosby?
No Max Crosby. Oh, come on, Matt. Come on. We said we weren't going to talk about Max Crosby on this podcast anymore. So it says a lot about just they're really stepping into this, and they're not. Am I allowed to curse on this podcast?
You are.
So they're not half-assing this idea that they're going to be different. And it's cool to see Jesse Minter really wrap his arms and talk about that. And the thing that I was thinking about this idea of like the video and the next flight in tandem with is the Ravens also put out they do like a Wired in-house video series, and their most recent episode showed a little bit of inside Jesse Minter's interview process and going from week 18 when they lost through now. And there were a couple very quick, they didn't really give a lot, but there were a couple quick clips of Jesse Minter on his virtual interview, which is neat to see, just him on Zoom. If nothing else, like watch it without the audio and it'd be interesting to see. Jesse Minter on Zoom, just to sort of get an insight of what that kind of looks like in the NFL. It's Jesse Minter with team president Sashi Brown, Eric DaCosta, Ozzie Newsome, and the director of data and decision science, Derek Yam. For them, asking Jesse Minter questions and getting a sense of what he's looking for. And a couple things he said, that he wants to build this team, build the offense around Lamar Jackson, and build a system where he can be his best self and the offense can thrive. And he also said that he's really looking forward to creating our own identity and building on what's been done here. Again, that's something he has talked about at each press conference, but it's just cool to see him say that in his interview like that. He came in knowing that was going to be the thing he was going to do. And at one point, Ozzie Newsome asked, hey, Jesse, have you had a chance to talk to Mike Macdonald? Obviously, they had a relationship in Baltimore in the late 2010s. Have you had a chance to talk with Mike Macdonald about what it was like for him to take over a head coaching job in Seattle? And Jesse was like, yeah, I've had a chance to talk about all kinds of things. And of course, Mike Macdonald is the person that Jesse's been compared to from the moment he became a...
It's almost interesting that they bring him up. Like they're willing to show this video as a guy who kind of got away in Mike Macdonald, but also riding the coattails of him just winning the Super Bowl a little bit at the same time.
Yes, and of course, the video happened before, that interview took place before the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. Yeah. But yes, as you said, like they're willing to acknowledge that that was a thing that happened. They want to chase what Mike Macdonald, the success that Mike Macdonald had. And Jesse just talked, again, that portion is, they only showed a short clip from that. But it was fun. It was cool to see that they asked about it. And of course, like that is the model, that is the path for him to take, and remains to be seen. And the biggest question that I think, we're going to talk a lot about this as we get closer to training camp and once we start to see this team on the field. But Jesse Minter had been asked point blankly, what does this new age Ravens, as he's talked about, like, what does that look like? And he's like, you're gonna have to wait and see, and we'll get a better sense once the team gets on the field. But we can say a little bit about what we know about Jesse Minter defenses, but what he's like as a head coach is going to be an interesting question. The other side of this whole, new what did I say? It's a new flight. The next flight. The other side of the next flight is the guy before Jesse Minter had a few comments to say that picked up some steam on social media. John Harbaugh went on Pardon My Take. Matt, why don't you read a little bit about what he said?
Yeah, I thought this was interesting and wanted to talk about it. Just it was an odd thing to say.
Yeah, he didn't have to say.
He didn't have to say this, to be clear. I took a lot of pride in what we did. And he was asked about how well the Ravens coaching staff coached last year. Mm-hmm. He said, I took a lot of pride in what we did. I took a lot of pride in this season. Honestly, as a coaching staff, it might have been our best job this year coaching this team. I thought we did a great job, but it wasn't good enough in terms of getting us where we needed to get for whatever reason. That last bit, for whatever reason, like almost, this whole thing is deflecting blame. I mean, you got the job, man. Like you have New York, you have all the power in the world to run that organization however you want to, including personnel decisions and who the security guards are and what's in the fridge, everything. He has all the power. Got everything he needed this offseason. And here he is still defending every single thing without acknowledging any kind of, we could have done better. That's a great team over there. Like, would have loved to have gone all the way and left it at that. But no, he kind of takes it a step further, which it just feels a little jaded to me a little bit when, all the comments that we've heard so far are that, like, yes, it was the Ravens' decision to move on from him, but, they left on good terms. And these comments they feel like there's a little bit more emotion back there.
Do you remember, I think the reason, that I have a little bit of a gripe with this, or just the people got frustrated, is because the stark difference between, do you remember what Todd Monken said? He went on Ryan Ripken's show shortly after he got fired, before getting the Browns job, and Todd Monken is taking all the onus. My comment section on Twitter was filled with Ravens fans and just NFL fans being like, I guess it was probably Browns fans too, because I think at that point they were like, he's probably going to be the Browns coach.
Yeah.
But they were, oh my God, forgiving him of all the frustration they had pent up over the season about how he handled the offense. It all was forgiven when Todd Monken got on camera and took onus for what went wrong.
I'd argue he was catching more flack throughout the season than Harbaugh was too.
Definitely. And for Todd Monken to sort of invoked his own marriage about the need and the importance to be able to say, I'm wrong. He was like, there are reports out there about my relationship with Lamar Jackson and how we handle things, and I thought we had a good relationship, but I could have coached him better. I could have had a better relationship with him. I could have done things better with this offense, or I could have done things differently. And his willingness and ability to say that speaks volumes to Todd Monken's ability to grow. And of course, I'm not saying that John Harbaugh is not that person, because he had an incredible tenure in Baltimore. But he didn't have to say that it was his best coaching job, considering he got fired the day after his offense regressed and his defense regressed, and the entire coaching staff, save for 2 or 3 people, is now gone.
And the AFC North was wide open.
Yeah.
It was a real down year for the division. Joe Burrow was hurt. Browns are still the Browns. It was really just came, and the Steelers were middling. Aaron Rodgers didn't blow the doors off by any means.
Yeah.
And then Harbaugh didn't even stop there on the podcast. On Part of My Take again, comparing the two organizations. He says, I don't know if it's new, but I hope it's better. It's along the same lines probably, but better. You do have a chance to kind of sit back and say, okay, I can sit back and start fresh. I'm not dealing with things that maybe I was dealing with before. Everything is going to be a clean slate for everybody. Yes, you're getting a clean slate, but again, with the kind of jaded commentary, it's rubbing people the wrong way. After what should be a celebrated tenure for John Harbaugh, it was a success by all measure. I mean, to end up with Lamar Jackson and help take him to where he is through several offensive coordinators. Harbaugh deserves a lot of credit for that. They win the Super Bowl. They have one of the greatest defenses of the last 20 years under him. All of this, Harbaugh deserves so much credit for. In the end, the fit just wasn't there anymore. But, I don't know. For him to comport himself this way, going into the New York media too, it's just a bit strange.
For sake of playing devil's advocate for a brief moment,
sure.
I think when he says the best coaching job, I wonder if he's specifically alluding to they started 1-5 and went into the bye week with 7, 8, 9, 10 starters on the all injured and missing time. And they do come out of the bye week and they do string together wins. They do get themselves back in the mix, and they gave themselves a chance by week 18 to make it to the playoffs. They gave themselves a chance in the fourth quarter to make the playoffs, and it didn't happen. I wonder if what he's specifically alluding to, without saying it, is that they did have the ability to bounce back. The other side of that is they didn't beat a playoff team. They didn't beat good teams. They didn't go out there and beat up on good teams to get themselves back into contention. That win streak was almost positive. It was all non-playoff contenders. I might be missing 1 or 2. Whatever. The bulk of the win streak, or the bulk of them winning to get back into contention, was not exactly an impressive list. or up to the standard or expectations of who the Ravens needed to be to get to where they wanted to be.
And the first 6 games count too. I mean, that goes against your coaching record as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, they were in a hole of their own making and had to climb their way out of it. And, there were problems that, we've talked ad nauseum about the roster issues, and certainly some of that falls on injury. But at the end of the day, both the Ravens felt like they needed to go in a different direction, and Harbaugh wanted to stay, it feels like.
And this is now time for the next flight.
The next flight.
I wonder if that'll
whatever
stick. Because obviously that's like the first time they've really used it. I'm curious if it'll stick. Because Jesse Minter's used the term new age a lot. The new age Ravens. The new age of playing like a Raven. Playing like a Raven obviously has been around for years and for decades. I'm curious if the next flight, if it actually sticks.
Well, we here on Early Birds love all bird-related puns, so
That's true.
We approve, even if fly different is not grammatically correct. Last thing here, we'll talk about Zay Flowers' contract situation. Ravens have a big decision coming up of whether or not to pick up his 5th-year option, which is going to be a hefty amount, $27 million, just over that, for him to be back in 2027. Jackson Smith and Jigba just reset the wide receiver market at $168.6 million. That's an average salary of over $42 million, more than Jamar Chase. So, Sam, when you look at this decision for Zay Flowers, I mean, I think picking up the option is a no-brainer, but how motivated should they be to work out an extension now as opposed to having to use that 5th-year option?
I think they should definitely try to work out an extension. Just to, this should be near the top of Eric DeCosta's priority list, because Zay Flowers is just such a. We've talked about this on previous podcasts. The difference between Zay Flowers' production compared to Mark Andrews at number 2 and everyone else in the wide receiver room in 2025. He's been consistent. He's a great relationship with Lamar Jackson. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler, 3-time Pro Bowler, 2-time Pro Bowler. He was the first Raven to get over, homegrown Raven to get over 1,000-yard season. He has become their quintessential wide receiver 1, and he's not Jackson Smith and Jigba, who was the best pass catcher on a Super Bowl winning team. You could argue he's not Puka Nacua, but he's been excellent.
I think you could definitely argue that he's not Puka Nacua.
But he's been excellent for them. He's been everything they've wanted him to be, and you obviously have to build around him. But the consistency and how much the Ravens really wrap their arms around Zay Flowers, and again, the connection and relationship Zay Flowers has with Lamar Jackson. Zay Flowers, even at opening day with Jesse Minter, says a lot right there about what they think about him.
Saw them chatting for a bit on the field.
Yeah, so certainly something they should be prioritizing with with figuring out that extension. Just to give a quick how the numbers work. If they do choose to pick up his 5th-year option, they'd have to do it before May 1st. And the way that would work is the 5th-year option is basically, the number is based on 4 tiers and how the player performs over their rookie contract. The tiers there's like a basic tier, there's tier 2, and then there's you make 1 Pro Bowl or you make multiple Pro Bowls. And because Zay Flowers has made multiple Pro Bowls, he's eligible for the highest mark for that 5th-year extension, which, as you said, is over $27 million. So Jackson Smith and Jigba resets the market. Zay Flowers' name comes into frame because same age, same situation. Does Zay Flowers warrant that kind of money? Almost definitely not, but he should be in line for an extension that is certainly more than what the 5th-year option would be. And if you're the Ravens, I think you want to lock that up. And we have talked about how players had so-so times at seasons, whatever. Lamar Jackson had a heck of a 4th quarter in that Week 18 game. Zay Flowers had, if not, he was right there with him. He had 2 touchdowns late. He was huge. He's a big part of the reason the Ravens had a chance in Week 18.
Yeah, no, certainly, especially with their lack of pass catchers behind him, has to be a priority for their future. I just wonder, is Zay Flowers a $30 million a year wide receiver? I mean, today's market, probably. But at the same time, you look at what this offense has been missing, and we've been talking about it from a wide receiver standpoint. He's not. I wouldn't classify him as a true number 1 in the sense of you put him on the outside and you say go up and get it. He's just not that type of receiver.
Yeah.
Now, in today's NFL, that type of receiver doesn't have to necessarily be the bona fide number one. I think the definition of a number one receiver has changed. It's fluid from offense to offense. And certainly having the rapport that he has with Lamar Jackson is valuable in and of itself for him to be able to step in as a guy with a ton of chemistry with him next year. So it should be a top priority to lock him up long term. I am just curious about where Zay Flowers sees himself among the wide receiver echelons of if we're talking $30 million a year, you can probably stomach that. Start talking $35 million a year, you get a little bit north of that, then it's like, how far are we going here? Because that is where I think we might start to see this thing get drawn out, if that is where Zay Flowers' camp kind of views himself compared to other receivers.
Yep, and slightly different situations, but it's worth mentioning that the Ravens did not pick up Tyler Linderbaum's fifth-year option. We know how that played out. They tried to work out an extension. Didn't happen. Linderbaum makes $1 bajillion going to Las Vegas. Zay Flowers is the kind of guy who, if they don't pick up his fifth-year option, if they don't work out a deal, and I think I would expect them to figure this out sooner rather than later, but if they don't figure it out and then he has a stellar 2026, he could also go command a lot of money somewhere else on the free agent market. So make sure to see how they handle this. But as we've said, they really love Zay Flowers, and they feel strong about his work ethic, what he's been able to show. And when there's a video on social media of Lamar Jackson working out that are few or far in between, Zay Flowers is there.
100%. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap there. We'll be back again on Thursday, at which point the Orioles will have played their 3-game series against the Rangers, so we'll have some stuff on that. Will you be back with me Thursday?
I think so. And owners' meetings this weekend.
So
there's a lot coming out of there that we'll get a chance to hopefully connect with my beat reporter, Brian Wacker, who's at owners' meetings. We'll get a chance to learn a lot from there. So hopefully we can talk about that on Thursday.
Hopefully make that happen. All right, Sam, any final words for the good people?
I got nothing. I need to go to sleep.
Yeah, I think I do too, honestly, even though I actually have a ton of work to do between now and sleep. But until next time, folks, thank you all so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And give us a follow over on social media. That's Twitter, that's Facebook, that's Instagram, and TikTok at Sun Early Birds. Always forget to drop the handle in there. For Sam Cohn, I am Matt Weyrich. Thank you all so much for listening, and have a good one.